few weeks ago, and he gave us a little bit of an insight into the IntelliFlash product rather than the VM store, which we've commonly talked about. So let's have a quick chat with Ross. How are you today, Ross?
Not bad at all. Not badly. How about
Yeah,
yourself?
not too bad at all. So, like I was saying, we had a brief introduction to IntelliFlash, and we got a certain point through. It'd be good to continue and learn a little bit more about the IntelliFlash product. You happy to do that today?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I
Absolutely.
believe you're all refreshed because you had a couple of weeks away in Cornwall as well.
I did. I did all social distance and everything.
Oh, that
It's
sounds good.
got to
Right.
be said, the biggest problem from COVID was actually finding somewhere you can book a meal.
Yes, I think because there was that was it eat out to help out going on when I was
Yeah.
away, the
Yeah.
first week it was, and it was we got booked in once, but then after that we just couldn't find anybody that's got any space for us to book in, so
Yeah.
we used it
Yeah.
once in 4 weeks because we couldn't get
Yeah.
anywhere. So
We were thinking this is going to be lovely and cheap food, and it's like, oh, yeah, you can't go
no,
anywhere.
it's a
It's
nightmare.
been interesting since then, actually, because we've been having conversations with a whole bunch of people about obviously COVID impacting everything. I've spoken to a whole bunch of IT directors and managers who are starting to shift their IT strategy thoughts to post-COVID
Ah,
and how their architecture needs to change. They've obviously done they had to react very quickly to get everything working and carrying on when all this hit. And since then, they've realized actually that's stable, that's now worked, but it's going to really change the 5 year plan and what we're doing long term.
yeah,
So that's been interesting.
yeah, because
There you are, random
yeah, well,
sideways
I
from,
think
from
a
our
lot of
whole other
people,
conversation.
are thinking, well, with this, especially the home working piece, so that's going to become more of a
Mm,
norm. But they haven't considered any of the other changes people have made to try and, swallow the impact of the COVID-19 situation. So, yeah, it's quite interesting that a lot of IT directors are considering, their 5 year plan differently now because of what's happened in the last 3 to 6
yeah,
months.
yeah. It seems to be a very kind of common trend at the moment from conversations I'm having.
So anyway, you've got some slides. Shall we show the slides and
Yeah,
we can kick off from there?
absolutely. Let me share this screen. So this is where we got to last time,
Okay.
which was just really just introducing IntelliFlash and how it fits with IT today. Without repeating myself too much for people that saw the last video, um, what we're finding when I'm talking to kind of IT teams and IT managers and leaders, storage is almost always being used for virtualization. There's other workloads, there's VDI, there's databases as well, but VMware, Hyper-V, uh, primary virtual estates is the number one workload in most enterprises.
Yeah, and
And if you're heavily virtual,
yeah, and so I'd agree with that. Now, I think there's also some start towards things like container workloads and things as well. But like
yeah,
you say, it's predominantly virtualized workloads at the moment.
yeah, yeah. Containers are definitely coming in for kind of new software projects, greenfield, tends to be new software. The original thought of containers was a lot of people were thinking similar to the cloud, that they'd kind of re-architect the existing. And that doesn't seem to be happening. Existing seems to be being maintained as virtual machines. And it's new software, new deployments, new projects that are going containers. So definitely starting to rise, but still fairly slow uptake in mainstream enterprise so
Yeah,
far.
I think virtual machines are going to be with us for a long time. I think
Yeah,
they just where we run them is might change. We might run some on premise, some out in a public cloud service, rather than all
yeah,
in one place.
yeah. Totally agree. Totally agree. Um, and that's kind of where IntelliFlash has found itself fitting. The fact that it is natively aware of virtual machines, it integrates into VMware, Hyper-V, and you've got that ability to then get an end-to-end monitoring on all the hardware that underpins that estate. That's been really powerful, and the security and the management have also been really, really useful. And these days, if you can add a protection against things like encryption viruses and spear phishing attacks, and get that effectively included for free, that's a really, really valuable capability because
Well,
there's a lot of risk for businesses, a lot of costs associated with these kinds of
yeah,
attacks.
I think also during this COVID period, there's been a lot more attacks again because a lot of
Mm,
people have been taken off the guard from the cybersecurity side and focused on the
yeah,
physical security around health and things. And sometimes these things have crept in. We've seen some quite significant attacks recently that were ransomware type situations.
yeah, yeah. It's very rare I speak to people today where they haven't either experienced ransomware attacks or they know firsthand somebody that has. It's definitely still on the rise.
Definitely.
So anyway, just moving on IntelliFlash. That's the background of kind of the concept and where it fits. I want to go into the range and just explain the breadth of capabilities we have with IntelliFlash. And if we've got time, maybe a quick actual live demo of the user interface, of the primary management
Yeah,
interface.
that'll be good.
So one of the core original concepts of IntelliFlash was that if you look at any estate, whether you are a business, whether you're a council, education, you're going to have a range of different types of data within the estate that the IT team are having to manage. And broadly speaking, you can categorize that as there's going to be some data that's sticking around for a long time that you need to keep around for either typically regulatory reasons or compliance reasons, sometimes just because nobody wants to delete it. But then you've also got the data that you actually really care about. That's the stuff that it keeps the team productive. It can help you be more competitive in the market. It keeps people happy. And it's the fast data that really people start to complain about if there's a slowdown in performance. But you've still got to keep the cold data around. The challenge for every business is there is no hard, fast rule splitting these types. It's very fluid. It's very dynamic. It will change from one year to the next. It can change as a project comes online. And even within a business, one department can have completely different requirements to another. So it's a really challenging thing for IT to balance because you need to make sure you've got the performance, but at the same time, cold data is more cost effective. Where do you draw the line?
Okay.
That was one of the original concepts behind IntelliFlash is let's make sure this is a single platform for handling all of the different types of workload.
It's quite interesting because I've been at a conference the last couple of days and it runs to tomorrow, which is the World Servitization Conference. And a couple of things that have come out from it is the amount of data that you're going to get, because you've got your IT related data, so the information from your IT estate. You've got now people having IoT data, so devices that are out there.
That's a lot of
and
data sometimes.
And you've also got the OT data, which a lot of people don't think of, but it's the operational technology. So if you're an oil organization, Shell, BP, those kind of bits, it's all that infrastructure that's out there, all the valve positions, the pump rates and things you're getting data from as well. So again, there's a large amount of data out there that people need to, one, ingest, but secondly, maybe need to retain for a period of time. Some of it be needed, quickly for processing. Others will be there in the background for later.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone's challenge is slightly different, but it's always there in the background. So this was one of the core tenets behind IntelliFlash was having a single platform, regardless of the type of data and the type of workload. So whether you need very cost-effective bulk storage with just a little bit of flash performance, whether it's all flash or NVMe, it's the same platform, managed the same way, the same feature set. So the goal is to keep it simple and to not have an estate that needs to grow organically over time that becomes very, very complex. And the way we do that is by having a really broad range of capabilities within the one product line. So you've got hybrid storage, which is really the entry level. So you're looking at 20 terabytes upwards of hybrid. I've got an account in the UK with about half a petabyte on a single box. So a good range of capabilities within that entry level hybrid system. They go hand in hand with the all flash models in the same range. Now, these are typically your smaller all flash for VDI, for point solutions, where you need high performance, but not much capacity. The mainstay today is the high density flash. So most mid-sized enterprises that were traditionally running high speed, either hybrid or kind of 10K, 15K disk arrays, these days they're tending towards HD flash. Flash prices have dropped significantly over the last couple of years. As you go into the higher density drives, the cost of the media drops massively compared to the smaller drives. And as you go into the bigger capacities, you tend to get more benefit from dedupe and compression. You've got that bigger data set, there's more for it to work with. You tend to get better data reduction rates overall. And essentially the costs, the swings have just swung in the direction of flash. I've even got accounts where they've replaced spinning disk arrays with flash and found that the power and the cooling savings have paid for it within 2 years alone.
Yeah, I think
So
it's a
it's
bit
been,
different to the past because when we were looking at spinning disk, we wanted lots of
mhm,
small spinning disks because it was faster to
yeah,
read the data across a large volume of smaller, faster drives because of the on cylinder time. It, trying to get the actual heads aligned to be able to pull the data off it. But with solid state drives, we don't need to do that, so they can be as big as they can be, like you say, and we get much
yeah,
denser storage.
yeah. And I think that trend's just going to continue. All the signs are they're just going to keep getting cheaper and cheaper, which means they'll be applicable to more and more businesses. Um, on the IntelliFlash side, the nice thing with all three of those, from the entry-level hybrid all the way up to the high-density flash, all of those are designed to be a long-term investment and very, very expandable over time. So you can add up to 6 expansion shelves to every one of these. You don't need to upgrade the controllers. They've got the horsepower up front to cope with whatever expansion needs you might have, because the controller cost is a really small portion of the cost of overall of a storage system. Something like 90-95% of the cost is the drives, the SSDs, it's media. So we invest up front, we put the high performance controllers in. That gives you the headroom for growth. And on every single one, you can also mix flash and hybrid expansion. So internally in the UK, we affectionately call these the flybrids, um, flash hybrid combinations. And it means you can do some interesting things like you can start with an entry level hybrid model. You can add half a petabyte of flash to that system as an expansion if you wish. I'm not aware of any other hybrid system that has enough horsepower to confidently do that and to be able to run compression, dedupe, encryption across that entire stack without any performance concerns. Um, because we've been doing this for a very long time. IntelliFlash was one of the first hybrid solutions in the market to run dedupe and compression as standard on all workloads. So primary high performance workloads, VMware, Hyper-V, databases, we've been doing dedupe and compression as standard across the whole range for a lot of years now. Been many, many years.
So it does, give lots of flexibility to organisations, doesn't it?
Mhm. Yeah, well, the bulk of the cost of an array is the media. So one of the philosophies right at the, and you're going back kind of 4, 5, 6 years, it was, look, if we've got the capability of doing this, we want it across the whole estate. Because if you're going to realize these savings, let's make sure they're applicable everywhere. It reduces management overhead, it makes the system more cost effective. So we put the engineering effort into making that possible. But then the flip side of the flybrid options is, yes, you can start with a hybrid and add flash in the future, which is great because flash is going to carry on getting cheaper and cheaper and more cost effective. But you can also start with a high density flash. But if you find down the line that actually you've got some workloads that just need bulk storage and you need something that's much more cost effective, you can absolutely add a cost effective hybrid shelf under the flash arrays. So you get that different economics of the layers, all managed the same way, all with the same capabilities. And that flexibility goes all the way up to the NVMe, which are the top of the range in terms of performance. Even there, we've got entry-level NVMe systems, we've got a mid-range, we've got ultra-high performance. So there's a lot of flexibility within that model alone. And then you can add flash and hybrid expansion shelves underneath them as well. So loads and loads of flexibility for everything from kind of a relatively small business that doesn't need a huge amount of performance up to some of the most performance-intensive tasks you can imagine.
Sounds good.
Latest addition to this is the 6000 series. So these are the large scale hybrids. So these are really for your data lakes, for your archives, for research data. These are really starting at kind of the half petabyte scale and going up to realistically 15 petabytes or so of capacity in a single platform. And that again has the capabilities of file and block storage, the same as the rest of the range. We'll have object storage on those very, very shortly as well. So very flexible, high-end
So
system.
they like replacements for people using large, like Isilon type infrastructure at the moment.
Potentially, yes. Large-scale file sharing is one of the key markets for that. We're using the IP that we have as part of the Tintri group to actually extend the capabilities and service those large-scale file sharing. But also using the IntelliFlash kind of performance pedigree to do that as a very high performance large-scale file share. One of the interesting capabilities that's going to be part of that 6000 range is you can use that today to replace, say, a large-scale NAS, a large-scale file archive, but you're going to have the capability to move that to object storage over time. We're finding with conversations that when you're getting into the multi-petabyte scale, more and more people are wanting to move to archive, to object. They're not necessarily in position to have all of their software talking object today. And if it's a university with research data, they're going to have potentially hundreds of pieces of software written by different researchers and teams that are all based around interfacing with that file store. And over time, they want to transition to object. Well, the nice thing is you can do both services at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's quite
So
important because POSIX-based applications are everywhere. So as long as you've got file access to the data, you're okay. But object is not quite so simple, and commonly you've got to either buy in a new set of software or develop your own software for that object capability.
That's it. And one of the biggest, or one of the main use cases of object today is backup archive, because so many backup vendors do support the S3 protocol as a backup target, and it doesn't need any kind of replanning and re-architecting within your estate. You can just take advantage of that capability very quickly. But yes, for primary data libraries, there is normally quite a lot of software work in moving towards object. And the nice thing is we can enable a really smooth transition. You can modernize your estate and get that performance boost, because this is a hybrid system using NVMe of caching for performance. You can get a nice performance boost and modernize the existing file structure, but then provide object capabilities. And over time, data can just be moved into object. It's a single pool on the back end, which means even if you're copying data from file to object and it's in both places, it's deduped on the back end, so it's not going to take any more capacity.
Yeah, because that's a challenge with traditional ways of doing it, because you end up with two sets, so you're halving your capacity by having two copies of everything.
Yeah, you're not needing to buy two different systems. You're not needing to put object storage in parallel. You're literally putting in one system that can do both types of service, and it gives you that ability to just migrate in your own terms at your own pace.
Sounds good.
So that's the hardware range. Every single one of those models has the same feature set, runs the same firmware, is managed the same way. So whether it's ultra high performance block connecting over fiber channel or kind of 100 gig Ethernet, or whether you're looking at a multi-petabyte object, the same user interface, very easy to use. I can teach you IntelliFlash in about an hour flat. So it's designed to be intuitive, because we know in a lot of primary estates, people aren't logging into the storage regularly. They're working in VMware, they're working in vSphere. So it's got to be simple. And then you've got feature parity across all the models. And the current firmware also is valid for the previous 2 generations of hardware. So I've got accounts where they're running dozens and dozens of arrays. One of our largest customers is running 80 arrays, covering 3 generations of hardware, all managed from a single pane of glass, all with common capabilities, and all the older hardware has gained the latest features as well. So one of the strengths in a larger estate is you don't get that organic growth over time, creating technical debt, technical burden of having lots of different types of system and needing lots of different types of skill set and knowledge within the team.
I think
the storage stays very simple.
I think that's a challenge for a lot of organisations these days, because they don't tend to have storage specialists anymore. They have people that are quite generalists that do a lot of different jobs, wear lots of hats, like yourself, wearing lots of hats. And one of the challenges is making it easy for them to be able to work in their virtual estate, move across to work in the storage capacity for that virtual estate, or even the storage that's been dished out to other systems. We were talking to an organisation earlier today that've got quite a lot of existing legacy platforms. Some of the old IBM UX platforms in there. So they've got some challenges with P series and those kind of capabilities, and still attaching it. And I'm sure with I think we've had this conversation before. Most of these solutions will allow us to attach using iSCSI, fiber channel, or other formats that will fit well with older style systems.
Mm-hmm. Actually, that kind of leads into one of the other strengths of the platform is we do support a lot of protocols, and you can support them all at the same time from the same system. So there's a definite trend at the minute towards Ethernet in the data center. Most new estates, new deployments are using Ethernet rather than fiber channel. But if you've invested in fiber channel and that's what you're running today, you're not necessarily going to want to retire that when you put in a new platform.
Yeah, very true.
One of the trends I have seen is we've had conversations with quite a few customers this year where they are running fiber channel. They're not planning to replace that for a couple of years, but they have also invested in either 10 gig or 25 gig, occasionally 100 gig Ethernet. So they've got that Ethernet capability, and they're looking at their servers as the next refresh and saying, well, actually, we don't want to put fiber channel on the next generation of servers. We've got this Ethernet network that's got the capabilities, it's got the performance. If we can just put a VLAN on there for the storage, we can happily put the storage traffic through those switches. So we're doing quite a few fiber channel deployments now where there's a 10 gig or a 25 or 40 gig Ethernet ports in there as well, giving them the ability in the future to transition over to Ethernet again, helping with that migration, that transition over time in a very, very controlled and easy way.
So we just gone over 20 minutes for this session. So do you think we've got time to do a quick demo, or do you want to leave that to another session?
I think that might be better for another session to do it justice rather than rush that.
Okay. Well, that was really good. Any other things you want to drop in, to close this one off?
Oh, I've probably got loads. A good one would probably be to just name drop some of the people that are using IntelliFlash today. We've got Western Digital, one of the biggest storage manufacturers on the planet. IntelliFlash has been their primary internal storage for many, many years. So they're currently running 80 arrays across 13 data centers. They've got everything from hybrid to NVMe storage in there. But again, single pane of glass, and it's a secure management console. So it's a read-only console. So no matter how big the estate, and they've got 70,000 employees. I think they are the largest storage manufacturer in the world. I think the last data I saw, roughly half the world's data is living on a Western Digital device. It's just ridiculous how much they have. And this is what they use internally for their IT estate. So there's some big customers out there using it.
Any other big names you want to drop in?
You're putting me on the spot now. I've got to think which ones have given permission.
Oh, you don't have to do that. It's not me that's going to get in trouble.
Yeah, we've got an awful lot. We've got reference customers in the UK, all across Europe. Some of the biggest ones, unfortunately, I can't name. They're quite happy to be a reference and talk to people. For example, we've got blue light customers with some very big estates, but they can only talk to kind of other kind of police forces or fire services.
Yeah, they're quite happy to talk to their peers, aren't they? But they don't really want other people to know.
They're not allowed to talk to anybody else. They've got to keep their systems secure.
Okay, well, we're hitting the top of the time, so thanks ever so much for your help today, and it'd be great to get you back to do this live demo we've talked about, so we can actually see the management interface and how you can actually manage all of that infrastructure across multiple sites and across multiple arrays. So thanks ever so much again, and look forward to seeing you in the near future.
No, you're more than welcome. Yep, drop me a line and we'll get another session booked in.
Sounds good to me. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Thanks, Lee. Bye for now.